was and wearing these very colorful lappish clothing, all lined fur skins and things like that. And then what they were doing was slaughtering the animals. The herds spend the summers up in the islands off the coast, and then they all swim to the mainland, and they've been fattened up all summer long. And then the restaurants in in Stockholm and Oslo and places like that, where reindeer meat is considered a huge delicacy, they were there backing up the huge pickup trucks and throwing the carcasses into them. So from this medieval scene that had gone on for hundreds of years to the great huge, they weren't pickup trucks, they were big dump trucks. Hauling the animals off was really quite a contrast. This young woman at McDowell in Sweden, her time with the laps, nowhere near as many, just small herds, but all done on snowmobiles with high-tech clothes and cell phones, and not cell phones.
And these guys were on horses, or
no,
they were on the ground.
They were running. For the one that I was at, they would run along beside the herds, whereas this thing nowadays it's all done on snowmobile. I didn't see anything up there. Anyway, it was an incredible experience. Then another time, really, Uncle John was sometimes quite out of his head. We went looking for a herd of musk oxen that he had heard were someplace off in the mountains in Norway. And so we strapped on these great, huge, long, heavy wooden skis, climbed. And I don't know what we would have done if we'd found musk oxen. We didn't have anything to protect ourselves with, and they can be very aggressive beasts with very sharp horns. I remember at one point being so exhausted, I thought, if I just sat down and lay down for a little while and had a little sleep, they could catch me or come by and pick me up on the way back. Fortunately, nobody let me do that. Going crisscross up mountains. Oh my God, it was so exhausting. Fortunately, we never came upon the muskox herd. But anyway, we had some.
So that was his purpose in being in Norway, was looking for muskox?
He was, it was essentially looking for the muskox, but also, I'm trying to remember, that might have been their second trip. I don't think he ever said anything about it, but I think at one point he was hired by the CIA. This was in the Cold War, when is Russia going to come and bomb us, or are we going to go and bomb Russia with atomic bombs and things like that? And I think he was, maybe that wasn't it. He was, I think maybe he had some fellowship or grant. Again, avoid paid work if you possibly can. I guess he did have. He did, because I forget what it was, but in any event, some institution of higher learning or something, some Arctic research thing had hired him. But he had this dream of domesticating the musk oxen, which he'd actually pretty well gotten from Viljamur Stephenson, who was the last of the great Arctic explorers, who really took on my brother he was the mentor of my brother. He's a wonderful, wonderful man. Anyway.
And so after that, in Norway, were you driving, or were you traveling by train?
We were driving with Uncle John, and because he was we almost, I'm sure, and if I told you this, stop me, but at one point we came to a pass. This was, I guess, in Norway, and he had been at this particular country hotel way, way, way off in the middle of nowhere before, up in the mountains. And they had closed down for the winter, and they had assembled all their food supplies and everything. And I remember the lobby of the hotel. It was a very rough kind of hotel, country mountain hotel. It was filled with piles and piles of books that they would be reading all winter because they would be completely cut off and just living up there. And they had taken their last trip down to the valley, and we arrived and we're all in bed, and I don't know, about 4 o'clock in the morning, we're awakened. And this was just with Uncle John and Dad and me. We're awakened by the guy who owned the thing saying, "You better get up, it started snowing, and you better move on, because otherwise
You're stuck here."
we would have been there for the whole winter." Aunt Penny and their darling little daughter in Oslo, and us supposedly on our way to Italy, but having made this detour because it seemed like it would be so wonderful. Anyway, it was pretty hairy, and pretty hairy going down the mountains. It was huge, huge snowfall. Anyway, but we didn't have to spend that. And then, of course, no communication. They didn't have telephones or anything like that up there. It could have been quite an adventure. But what happened was that Uncle John sort of lived kind of high on the hog. And so we stayed in nice places with him. He did have a grant from somebody. The first time he and Aunt Penny went to Svalbard, might have been the time when he might have done some work for the CIA and kept his eye open or something, I don't know. But this was their second trip over. And so we would go to restaurants and have nice meals and do all that kind of stuff. And by the time we left Norway, and Dad and I took a train to, where did we go? Oh, to Paris, where we picked up our Volkswagen Bug. But by that time, we had sort of run out of just about all the money that we were planning to live on for a year, because my brother kept taking us to these nice fancy places, and we would have meals and all kinds of stuff. So after that, we really lived very, very frugally, very, very frugally. So it was, but you know, it was really worth it. We had a really interesting time. And
then from Paris you drove to Italy?
From Paris we drove to Milan, and then we're in Milan, a little mixed up. We were in Milan for a whole winter.
So that was your honeymoon? Or was there some
we
other?
had actually had a because we went back and lived in Cambridge for a year while Dad finished up his thesis.
But that wasn't the honeymoon.
Well, no, we made a little trip up through Vermont and to Nova Scotia and back for a couple of weeks or something like that. Okay. Yeah, but then we had an apartment in Cambridge. Right. But then, and then Dad worked for Giaponti. And then we went to Rome, and I guess Granny had come over with Bart